Hi guys, what's up? It's Will and John back once again. MMA Huddle is here for UFC Fight Night. Anthony Smith against Glover Teixeira is our main event for this card, coming off the return of the UFC with UFC 249 and Cejudo defending his belt and Justin Gaethje winning the interim belt, then tossing it to the side and says it's not the real belt until he beats Khabib, which I actually thought was spot on actually. So but we're back here with another card. This is our second one in the space of the 7-8 days that the UFC are putting on fights here. And like I said, it is being main evented by Anthony Smith against Glover Teixeira. So what we're going to do like a kind of quick picks one this week. We're going to fly through the prelims, spend a little bit more time on the main card, and then I'll talk about a couple of bets I've got on, maybe a couple of spots I like. But before we get into that, before we pass you over to John here and see how he is, hit that button, subscribe button, hit the like button. If you have any comments at all, any disagreements, just anything at all, any questions you want to ask, any bets that you may have, let us know and let's see what you're thinking and how you think these fights are going to go. So, we've got another fight card, John. How you doing? How's things?
Great, brother. Safe as houses. I hope everyone else is safe at home as well. I know you're also safe, Will. And, of course, we want to send our birthday love to you, Will. Happy birthday. I can't remember what it was again. Was it 49, 50, something like that? What was it again?
Halfway to 40. So, but yeah, thank you very much. It was a nice wee quiet day with me and the little ones. So, but yeah, just another year passes by.
It is, does indeed, but another year, fights to look forward to, that's what you're going to think about. And another year, obviously, with the missus and the kids, so it's great memories, and, that's the main thing. I saw the pepper pick, you looked exactly like the cake, I have to say. You're the shape of a cake.
The cake's lovely, by the way. I've still got a little bit left, which I'm going to maybe try and eat some, considering I'm not long ate, so, but yeah. We're going to get into this fight card. Like I said, we're going to fly through these prelims and go into the main card, which I think is a really good, solid main card. So we're starting off heavyweight division with an absolute, I don't know the word, maybe shit show of a fight. That might be kind of what I'm going about. But Chase Sherman making his return to the UFC against Isaac Villanueva. Who have you got?
Yeah, weird one. I've got Chase Sherman. It's a weird fight, bro. Like, a pair of us spoke about that fairly quickly. Ike is in the latter stages of his career, so to speak. He's fought middleweight, he's fought heavyweight, he's fought light heavyweight. What is he? He's just like a bit of a brawler, so to speak. He's not the greatest technical guy. He can get hit easily. He's got a bit of pop in his hands. And Chase, we've seen him in the UFC before. I don't know why they're making this fight. It's a regional fight. Chase, heavyweight. He's exciting in the fact that he will just bring a fight. He'll throw big hands. He'll throw big kicks. He'll take a punch as well. I can see there being a bit of a size discrepancy here, and I think this will play out obviously towards Chase's advantage. I can see Chase getting the victory here with just the striking, alone. I think he can land heavier. I think he's for a heavyweight. He moves pretty quick. I think Ike will have a bit of a difficulty unless he can close distance down, get him against the cage. So I'm going to Chase Sherman for the victory here. I'm going to say stoppage, probably in the first round even.
Yeah, I'm going with Chase here. Like I say, I was saying to John before we come on here, we know who Chase Sherman is. If you've been around long enough watching the UFC, you know that he's a very, very big, kind of hittable heavyweight. Then you went back out in the regionals, he won 3 in the first round, and you're thinking, all right, okay. And then you go watch and you're like, oh, it's like he still hasn't improved that striking defense. He's still wide open. The chin's still in the air. But he's got some tools there that can hurt people. Big leg kicks. He's obviously got some power there. When you look at Villanueva, he's beat a kind of couple of ex-UFC vets, to me, looking at him, I just think he's a natural middleweight. I think he can make middleweight if he was to really put in the time and be kind of disciplined. 36 years old, not overly great when you see him on the tape, not big power, so I kind of struggle to see where he really hurts Sherman, but Sherman is wide open to being hit, so I'm going to pick Chase Sherman. I think he can pick at the legs, and that's something he is pretty good at, is chopping down the trees and then managing to get finishes from there, so I'm taking Chase Sherman. Bantamweight division, we've got Hunter Azure against Brian Kelleher. I'm going to go with Hunter Azure. I'm not really on the Brian Kelleher hype train. I've been trying to fade him the last few fights, and I probably did it once, maybe too early against Odie Osborne, who was still relatively new to the sport, new to the UFC. When you've got someone like Brian Kelleher who's been around fought some decent guys in the UFC, also fought some decent guys outside the UFC, then yeah, I was probably a little bit quick and probably fading him there. But what I like about Azure is like he doesn't really stand out in any one kind of discipline, but he's very solid across there and a very tough guy who can keep up a pace. As long as he doesn't kind of get kept at a distance by Kelleher or get caught in a choke, I think over the 15 minutes of this fight he can win through that. So I've got Hunter Azure via decision.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I'm going with Hunter too. I think there has to be a peak for Kelleher to kind of start dipping. I know what you mean about the fade thing. And I thought Odie did pretty good, to be fair, to start with. And just early on in the fight, he was throwing some good shots at Brian Kelleher and really troubled him. But I think Hunter's got solid chin on him. He's showing good combinations. I think he's got good speed as well. I like him as well in this one. I think that he can offer something a bit of hunger, a bit of freshness. He's got to have a bit more composure, like you said, Will. He's not going to be bright-eyed in the UFC. He's not making his debut, so I think that will play a huge advantage to him in this one. I think he should get the victory as well against Brian. I'm going to go decision because I think Brian, he is tough. He can take a hit, he can take a lick. So I'm going to go decision for Azure as well. I think he's got a good kind of skill set, which I think he can be a decent addition in this bantamweight division in the future.
Moving on in the lightweight division, Benitez is actually moving up from featherweight. I think this has probably been put together because the short noticeness of the fight. But he's against Omar Morales from Venezuela. I think he's an undefeated guy. Who have you got in that one?
Yeah, Omar's the guy from the Dana White Contender Series. Yeah. And you know what? Even though almost not. Again, he's like, 33, 34, so he's not, for that weight class, he's a bit late coming into the UFC, so to speak, to build himself up, but he's really composed when you watch him fight. He's got a lot of composure, he's calm, he's relaxed, he picks good shots, and the guy's got power, man. And I think Gabriel Benitez is a good fit for him in this fight. I think that Gabriel Benitez, obviously, it's almost like the Mexican kind of thing, man. They want to stand, and if you entice them in for a brawl, they'll be up for it. And I don't think that would serve Benitez well in this fight. I think that he's got to be careful with this fight. I think he's got to stay distant and keep at range, but I just don't think he will. I think that he's got power in his hands. I think Sadiq showed that, if you can hit him heavy and hit him hard, you can really cause him problems. And I think that he's going to have this issue here. I think Omar's just going to be patient in the fight, take his time, build it up, and I think you'll see second, third round, he'll start to land some shots that will really put Benitez in difficulty. So I think Benitez got a bit of a tough one here. I think Omar should get the victory. I'm just going to go out there and put it and say it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go against you. I'm going to go with Benitez here, even though I think that he could have some tough spots in this fight. I was actually impressed. I know the fight only lasted like 4 minutes against Sadiq Youssef, but I thought he had some spots where he was hitting Sadiq with some good shots, getting off there, he was countering very well, and that's something he is very good at. He can counter very well. Heavy leg kicks, but he is against a brute of a man here, and Omar Morales, bigger. You can definitely see that is his weight. He could probably fight 170. He's a big built guy, but it's very limited the kind of tape you can see him. You've obviously got the fight against Harvey Park in the Dana White Contender Series. Then I thought he had a really decent fight against Dong Young Ma, where he really just outstruck him. He got a takedown in there, pass guard a few times. But I think he's got very good kicks, actually. I think he can really break you down with kicks. But I think Benitez has got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of experience in the UFC. I still think Morales, even though there's not a hell of a lot of tape out there on him, so that's still a little bit of a wild card a little bit. So we don't know what his grappling's like. Not that Benitez is known as a kind of great grappler, but I think he could do it here. But Morales, like I said, is a bit of a hulk of a guy, so I just fancy taking the shot in the dog and Benitez here. Not super confident, but I think that if he gets through the early exchanges and doesn't come away with too much damage, then I think he can win his way to a decision. So I've got Mowgli Benitez there to win via a pretty closely contested decision. Sijara Eubanks against Sarah Moras. I'm picking Sijara. I really don't see where Sarah Moras really has any advantage in this fight outside of maybe catching a very quick submission that maybe a class 1 mistake from Sijara. Sijara's a black belt, but I put my trust in Sijara Eubanks against Kelleher last time, and that burnt me. But these are two very, very kind of low-level fighters, and I'm going to pick Sijara Eubanks. I just think she's a little bit better everywhere, a little bit tougher as well. So I'll take Sijara Eubanks here.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this fight. I think it's... Oh, gosh. I'm going Eubanks as well. I just think her striking's way superior than Moras. Sarah's not going to be there doing anything. Like, Betch was able to get the striking off on her, so she was able to compete on that with her, but I just can't see her doing anything. So I'm going Eubanks all day. I think she'll just piece Sarah up on the feet. Sarah's going to shoot for the takedowns. Eubanks quiite strong. She's got an alright takedown defense. I think she could probably hold it off. So I'm going Eubanks as well. And it's a fight I'm not going to be bothered watching. It's the kind of one you make a cup of tea or go eat a slice of cake or do anything other than watch it, really.
Yeah. Moving on, we've got Blackie Michael Johnson against Thiago Moises. Interesting fight. Two guys at kind of different spots in their careers. How do you see it going? Yeah,
I know Michael Johnson, back up at 155, sticking around, and it's a tough one for Michael Johnson because that is the issue he's got. He's at that point in his career. It's what's he going to be? Is he going to be a featherweight, lightweight? Where's he best suited? And I think lightweight's probably best for him. I do think he suits that weight class more. I think he's got... I think speed is one of the things he has huge for him. And I think Thiago's got to be super careful here. Because Michael Johnson's got a bit of underrated takedown defense. If you take away the Khabib fight, let's not forget, Khabib does that to everyone. So it's not like it was Michael Johnson's choice to get absolutely pummeled into the ground. But Thiago Moises, he's a beautiful... jiu-jitsu practitioner outside of the MMA world and stuff like that, outside of the cage, but I'm going to go with Michael Johnson, man. It's hard to go against because Thiago's not like a knockout artist, so to speak. He's not like a Emmett where he's got that pop in his hand at any point. I feel that he has to get the fight to the ground to have the superior fight in the game. And I just think Michael Johnson's good footwork and speed is going to be a factor. And he has got power, Johnson, in those hands when he's so quick with his hands. It's got so much power in him. I'm just going to go with Michael Johnson on this one. I'm not uber confident in picking Johnson. I just think it's a combination of experience, knowledge, and who he trains with. He trains with likes of Usman, he trains with Gilbert Burns, he trains with all those savages. I think he's got good stead for the takedown defense. Mike Chandler as well is another good one. So I'm going to go with Michael Johnson.
Yeah, it's hard to be really confident in kind of either side here, in my opinion. Especially if this was going back a couple of years ago, I would have been all over Michael Johnson in this spot. And when Michael Johnson's on, Michael Johnson beats some of the world's best fighters.
Yeah.
And simple, he gives them fits as well. I mean, look at his record. He's beaten Porry, he's beaten Tony Ferguson. He wobbled Justin Gaethje more than once in that fight. So when he's on, he's a really tough fighter. But I think everything that goes on in his gym, because I think at Hard Knocks 365 they spar really hard. They go after each other. I don't think that's really helped him. Kind of later on his kind of career here, and he's a guy that's a lot of fights. I mean, his record, you look at his 20 and 15 records, he's as close to being a 500 fighter as you are, but he's got some amazing skills when they're there. I mean, the Josh Emmett fight, he's picking Josh Emmett up. Josh Emmett could not touch him, but all it took was that one big bomb, and that was it. And that's what you can't really rely on Michael Johnson kind of nowadays. I thought he was a little bit lucky in the Stevie Ray fight. I thought that it could have went his way, but I wasn't really too mad because obviously Stevie's from around my way. This is a big fight for him. I thought his last two fights were good winnable fights against Camelworthy and Evan Dunham. They were the fights that they were trying to put together in April for him. And this one here, he should have the advantages in many kind of aspects. He also comes from a wrestling background. Moises, if he was to get down and maybe control him a little bit, maybe that's where he could win the fight. But this is a big kind of fight for him as well because he's lost Tismagulov, Dariush, beat Holloway in the middle there. So if he could get this win here, he maybe keep his job a little bit longer. I just think I'm not super confident, but I've got Michael Johnson just via kind of his hand speed and stuff. So I've got MJ in that one there. Andrei Arlovski against Philipe Lenz. And this is a guy that's coming in from the PFL as a millionaire from the PFL, so fair play to that dude. And he's facing Andrei Arlovski, who is obviously former UFC champion, a guy who's been around for as long as I can remember in fights, and a guy that you really don't know who's going to really turn up in fights. Sometimes he does some silly things. Sometimes he sits back and really uses his length and just his kind of experience, and he's winning fights through that against kind of opponents maybe like a Philipe Lens. But I kind of see this fight being a little bit tit for tat. Philipe Lens can sometimes sit back a little bit too much for my liking, and I think that will play into the hands of Arlovski a little bit, so he can maybe make this fight a little bit closer than he needs to. I think if he's more aggressive and he goes after someone like Arlovski, I think he can take him out, because you look at his record, I think that Lens has only got 2 decisions on his record. But I've got a funny feeling he's going to pick his shots a little bit more. I don't think he's going to go as gung-ho as what he kind of might have done, or what he did in the PFL a little bit. But I've got Philipe Lens here. I've got him via decision. And, who knows whether we see Arlovski. But Arlovski seems to kind of pull a win out when he really needs it. He did it against Struve. He did it against Rothwell when he was losing fights all the time. But then he kind of pulls one out. So it wouldn't surprise me. But I've got Lens via decision.
Yeah, I think Lens... I think with the PFL, it's like they try to goad you, don't they? Because it's if you get more points if you finish in the first round and stuff like that to get through the group stage, isn't it? So I think that's probably, to be fair, it's a way to entice more action, isn't it? To guarantee yourself a way through. So yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why his skill set in that division or in the PFL was applied. But I'm with you as well. I think that Arlovski's just we know what Arlovski can do, but we don't know what Arlovski will do. And it's such a conundrum to face when you've got Arlovski on the books there when he fights. Like the Walt Harris fight. He had moments where he looked good, and then there was just moments where he was just too tentative. And again, if he does that with Philipe, you could actually get a really boring heavyweight fight where they just stand off to each other too much. They're trying to both counter each other. Or Arlovski could be smart and get in close, get Philipe against the cage. Arlovski's really good at those kind of grueling fights against the cage work, underhooks, battles, kind of stuff like that. Little dirty boxing, knees and stuff. You know, the little things that don't look like much, but the hardest bit. He's actually really good at that stuff. It's experience is a big factor. But you do question Arlovski, and I'm going to go with Philipe here. I just think he's going to come here with a bit of air of confidence. He's flying high really at the moment, isn't he? So, and obviously he's been signed up by the terrorists, so that's how he's got in here. But yeah, I'm going to go with Philipe as well. I think the new blood might come in, and it's not to say Arlovski shouldn't be gone by now, but we need some fresh blood, man. We need this. So I'm going to hopefully get this kid through here to get Philipe to win.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to the main card now, we've got Karl Roberson against Marvin Vettori in a very kind of interesting middleweight encounter. This is what I think one of the better fights in the whole entire card. How do you see the chips falling in that one?
Yeah, I love the fight though. It's a great fight. I'm just going to put it straight out there straight away. I'm going to go with Vettori straight away. I'm going to go with Marvin Vettori. I think Karl Robson's at that stage where he's beating the guys at the lower end of the middleweight division, and this is the kind of big win he needs to get. Like, this is the kind of middleweight win he needs. But for me, I think Karl's he's got good leg kicks, he's got good striking. If he can get the fight to the ground, he's a bit dangerous, but I just think Marvin's got solid takedown defense. But I think the Sanchez fight, I know Sanchez isn't the best striker, don't get me wrong, but I just thought he looked so good there, Marvin. He looked like he had lovely head movement. He was just moving out the way. He had the jab and the straights down to a T. He was moving out the way of the shots, and I think he can end up doing that with Karl. I think he can end up frustrating Karl Roberson a little bit, where he can just get out of range. He can land some good shots. Marvin, for a middleweight, does have a good output. He has got a good output on him, and he's he's not getting battered in a lot of fights. You know, he is contending in quite a few fights he has, even when he doesn't get the win. I just think Marvin's got the slicker hands on the feet. I think he's got the improved head movement as well over time. I just kind of feel he's on the roll. I think, wasn't Vettori meant to fight Darren Stewart in London? I think it was, yeah. That fight didn't happen, but I'm going to go with Marvin here. I just kind of swaying towards him after watching the tape. I think Karl's a good middleweight, don't get me wrong. I just don't think he's going to beat Vettori.
Yeah. It's a really good kind of fight. I'm looking forward to seeing Vettori, because I think right now he seems to really be finding himself as a fighter, so he's maybe coming into his prime, and I think he's priming himself to make a jump into that top 15, and this is the type of fight that I think he needs to do. And I mean, Karl Roberson is a guy, who is a kickboxer by trade. So obviously, I think he's got the advantage kind of for technicality on the feet. I think that he is really, really good up there, but I do think he's very incapable of not kind of getting taken down. I think Vettori can use that to his advantage. He's did that in the past where he's taken fights to the ground. He's also, on the feet, he's not a guy that shies away from going toe-to-toe on the feet either. I mean, he was standing there with Israel Adesanya. He was giving him some licks as well, managed to get some takedowns mixed up in there, and then he's came back after that fight, and I think he's looked as good as he ever has in the UFC, beat Machanchi Ferreira, and then really just outstruck Andrew Sanchez pretty easily in that fight last time out. Where you got Roberson, who went to Russia, beat Kopylov, caught a really bad finger to the eye, and then managed to kind of pull out a lovely submission there in round number 3. I just think Vettori is dogged in his takedown attempts, and I don't think that Roberson's really good at stopping takedowns. I think once he gets there, I think Vettori might actually have a chance to submit him as well. So I'm going to go Marvin Vettori, either via submission or decision. This might be this is his first finish. Is there a finish in the UFC actually? Let me see. Alberto Uda, of course. I think he could submit here, so I'm going to go Marvin Vettori via submission in probably end of round number 2, maybe early round number 3. Moving down to the bantamweight division, we've got Ricky Simón against Ray Borg in a really good, interesting encounter here. You've got Borg, obviously, well, I was going to say moving up from 125, but he never really makes 125, or in fact, he doesn't really even make 135. So, just throw that out there, just whatever weight class it's going to be at. But Ray Borg's a guy that you can't sleep on, and I've tried picking against him. I did it last time out against Rogerio Bontorin, and he ragdolled Bontorin. Bontorin's a strong flyweight. You can't really use the fact that I know he missed weight, but like Bontorin's a tough, solid, stocky dude, and he was just getting grinded to bits by Ray Borg. I think in some spots he can do this against Ricky Simón, but I think Ricky is very, very a good scrambler, really good takedown defense. But he has been taken down. You've seen Merab take him down. Merab takes everybody down, to be fair, though. But then he scrambled back to his feet, got up, and kind of went through and won that fight. I don't know how he won that fight against Merab, but he did. But he's shown that he can do well with kind of game planning as well. You've seen that in the Rani Yahya fight where he knew, I want nothing with Rani Yahya on the ground there. He would kind of stop in the takedown, he'd sit back and he'd kind of pop him at a distance. And I think here he's got a pretty significant reach advantage. If he can stop the tenacious like Ray Borg from grabbing onto him and really taking him down, then I think that he can win the fight. I do think he's got everything to be really, really close, though. I'm not super confident in Ricky Simón, but I'm going to pick him. I think he's probably got an advantage on the feet. But as long as Ray Borg doesn't get him to the ground and keep him there, which I don't think he can for long spots of this fight, then I think Ricky Simón will win a decision. But looking forward to that fight. It's a good scrap.
Yeah, it is a great scrap. I'm loving it, yeah. It'd be nice to see if Ray Borg can make the weight. Yeah, Ricky Simón, yeah, that's the thing. He's good grappler, good scrambles. He can throw some hands. He's not the cleanest striker, but he can throw some heavy hands on you. But that's what you said before, tenacious. Ray Borg is one hell of a... He gives you 15 minutes hard, and he goes... Every time you watch him scrap, obviously he's fighting for his son, I suppose, in a way. It's something that he's fighting for, and he's got something. He'll fight for your money. And that's one thing, but always sways me back to Ray Borg, is that the way he chained his wrestling together as well. You know, the Bontorin one chained his wrestling great, super tight. Casey Kenny fight was a good fight as well. I thought that was a fun fight to watch, but I thought he's tenacious, hard work. He puts the fit, and I know Ricky Simón does as well. Ricky Simón goes hard as well for the time, but I'm just going to pick Ray Borg in this fight because I think that his grappling aspect with the chain wrestling, I think he can get him through. I think he can get Ricky Simón grappling and tiring. I say tiring. I think he can get the grappling aspect to the point where he will get the respect of Ricky Simón, which will then almost pull Ricky Simón's strike in a way. Because Ricky will have to hold back a little bit more because of what Ray Borg may offer on the grappling aspect, and I think I'm not overly confident on this pick. I'm like 51-49. I'm going to go with like a 2-1 Ray Borg, but would I be surprised like a 2-1 Ricky Simone? I wouldn't be at all. I think it's going to be so much fun when they do grapple, especially if it goes to the ground, they're scrambling. So I'm going to go with Ray Borg on that one.
So moving on to the lightweight division, I think we're in, aren't we?
Yeah.
We are. We've got Alexander Hernandez against Drew Dober. This is another fight, one of the fights, probably my top 3 fights in the card that I'm looking forward to. How do you see that one playing out?
A fun fight, man. An awesome fight. You've got Alex Hernandez, young buck, full of beans, just comes aggressive. I'm hoping that he will start to curb it a little bit so he starts to fight more intelligently rather than just kind of instinctual. Like he's just going overzealous, bit too overkeen. I think that Drew Dober, man, he's just solid, absolutely solid guy. He's got wicked striking. He's just a fundamentally solid fighter, and I think it's a hard fight for Alex Hernandez. I really do. I just think Drew Dober is the kind of guy he's super quiet, low-key guy in the 155 division. I think not enough people talk about him or recognise it, really. You know, when he's only lost to, like, Beneil Dariush, OAM, as well. And, you know, like, in recent years, he's not lost to too many guys. And he finishes guys. He's a solid fighter. I think Alex Hernandez might try to grapple with Drew Dober. I think that's the best option for Hernandez, is to try and fight this fight on the ground. Drew Dober does have a bit of tendency. He can get taken down. I think as long as he can nullify the takedowns enough, I think Drew Dober should win this fight. I think he's the better striker. I think especially coming to the second, third round, I think Drew can start to apply himself and his game plan a lot more. I'm more favour heavy towards Drew Dober in this one. I just think he's an all-round better fighter than Alex Hernandez. I think Alexander Hernandez has got a lot of potential. I just would like to see him take a little bit of a break and just kind of, just polish off some areas and then come back maybe with a bit of maturity. But I'm going to go Drew Dober on this one.
It's a really good fight because I'm not the biggest fan of Alexander Hernandez, but I think it's hard to tell with the kid because he came in all guns blazing. Obviously, that big knockout of Dariush kind of set him up. Then it's thrown the guy in the rankings, which then he's got a target in his back pretty much straight off the bat. And you have to kind of work your way, and you have the right fights in the UFC to kind of build yourself up. And I thought even in the Auburn Mercy fight there, I bet him in that one, I remember, and he had some struggles there. I think he was gassing a little bit. Then he was 1-2 fights in a row, and then the Cowboy came back to 155, and Alexander Hernandez was talking clean out his arsehole. He was talking so much shit that week, and just he sounded stupid, and ultimately ended up getting absolutely smashed by Cowboy. And they're the type of fights, honestly, that Cowboy relishes. He will destroy people like that, and he did. And then he came back against Ronaldo, another tough guy. I actually think Ronaldo beat him. I think if that's not in his hometown, Ronaldo gets that win anywhere else in the world, personally. So yeah, it's I think it's the quintessential striker v grappler in this fight. And when you see Drew Dober, I do think he is in the best spot of his career. He looks confident. He sounds very confident. That left cross that he landed on Polo Reyes was beautiful. Yeah. And then the counter strike that he caught Hack Paras with was absolutely pinpoint accurate. Very, very beautiful. Knocked him out and got a big win over a kid that I think will eventually be very good in that division. The one thing that I just don't like with Dober, and I've seen bits and pieces of his improvements with his takedown defense in the Dariush fight especially. Dariush was going for clinch takedowns and he was really stopping them very well. But to me, if someone who's a good double leg, has got a good double leg, and I'm not saying that Hernandez really has because I haven't really seen too much of it, but I think he's probably got it in his arsenal here to maybe get takedowns. And for me, I think that's where he can do his damage, and I think he can take spots on the ground, whether it be in side control or be on the back. I think that he's going to have positions where he'll maybe have a couple of minutes of the mat time, and that's where he's going to win this fight. So for me, if he doesn't get stung in the feet, which if he's smart, he uses his grappling, because if he stands with Dober for too long, he's probably going to get counter struck and he's probably going to get his head kind of caved in a little bit. But I've got Hernandez to get takedowns and kind of win this fight through time on the mat, really. So I've got Alexander Hernandez via a decision in that one there. Co-main event, I said this to John earlier on, circus fight, Ovince and Preux moving up to heavyweight to face Ben Rothwell. I mean, I've got no idea how this fight's going to go, and it's weird because it's not like we haven't seen these guys fight before. It's just weird seeing Ovince and Preux kind of moving up division. He's such a staple at 205 that this is a fight you would never ever put together. So obviously you're going to have OSP, who's not really cutting all that much weight for this one. You've got Rothwell, who's a big dude anyway, but he's a guy that has not looked the same since that USADA suspension. He looks a completely different fighter. He looks just completely not the fighter that he was, and that's probably whether it's the juice, maybe the layoff. Those layoffs are really, really tough to come back from, and the Ivanov fight, I thought he won personally. The Arlovski one, he fought absolutely terrible in that fight, but again, we're talking about Arlovski earlier on. Sometimes when he turns up with a certain game plan, he can actually fight it very, very well, and that's kind of what he did in that one. Then he knocked out Stefan Struve, who he really can't take all that much damage anymore. So honestly, for me, I've got no real confident favourite in this one here. OSP is always a guy I've always really, really liked watching fight, because sometimes you can expect unexpected from this guy. And I mean, the fights that he had kind of scheduled, I think he had Ryan Spann at one point, he had Gazmatov, who I thought he would have beat there, and Kutalaba I thought would have maybe beat him there, but coming off a big win over Michelle Alexeychuk, honestly, I don't know. I'm going to go with Ben Rothwell. I've not really got a good read in the fight, so I'm going to take the underdog in this one, so I'll take the bigger guy in Ben Rothwell here.
Yeah, size can play a factor in the heavyweight division, but then again, speed can, obviously. St. Preux's going to have the speed, but I think Rothwell, like we say, he's not the same since he came back, but he's not getting stopped. So it's the kind of awkward one where he's still got the chin. Maybe it was the time off, being away, getting back in the groove again. And he kicked the absolute dick off Stefan Struve as well, twice. And Stefan Struve probably shouldn't have. He was winning that fight, so to speak. Stefan Struve could have just went. He was basically, I think it was Dan Murrell was trying to get him to finish the round, going, look, you're up, you're winning. If you get to the end of the round, but I don't know why he was trying to convince him to keep fighting. But whatever it is what it is. I think Rothwell he'll just try to pressure Ovince St. Preux. He'll try to close him down and just keep him against the cage to try and throw his awkward striking. And to be fair, when Rothwell gets you close in dirty boxes, he's got legit good dirty boxing. And OSP, he's one of them guys he's a confidence guy. If he's not getting a lot of momentum in a fight, you see him, I'm not saying mentally go out the fight, but you do see him kind of switch off a little and start to shy away and kind of go into a shell. I think OSP will look good, but I don't think he'll exert too much. Like, if you're heavyweight and you're fighting someone like OSP, you just get him against the cage straight away. Get him against the cage, get the heavy grappling going. Go, look, I'm going to tire out my heavyweight. I'm going to tire you out with my grappling. Especially if I'm Rothwell, I'm going to be trying to be as heavy as I can going into this fight. So I'm going to go with Rothwell. I think he's still hard. He still takes a hit really well, so I think that's the issue I have as well with it. I don't think OSP might be able to stop it. I think Rothwell will be able to take the hits, especially if Rothwell can handle leg kicks from Stefan Struve. I think he'd be all right in this one. So I'm going to go with Rothwell as well. I think he can get the win and the victory here.
Okay. On to our main event, Anthony Smith faces off against one of the guys I really like watching at 205. I was just talking about OSP, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of Glover Teixeira, and he's got another main event slot here. How do you see this kind of closely contested fight going down?
It's a tough one. I have to, man, because I love Glover as well. He's so good on the ground. He's an absolute savage little beast on the ground, but he's got cannons in his hands as well. And they say the kind of power in your hand is the last thing to go, and speed is one of the things, and there's going to be a speed advantage here for Anthony Smith. Obviously, Teixeira's not getting any younger. I'm not saying Anthony Smith is a missile when he fires. He's a little bit lax sometimes with his punches, but I thought Anthony Smith looked really good against Gus. I know Gus, it wasn't prime Gus, so to speak, but I thought he looked really good in that fight. I thought he was closing it down. He still managed to distance well. He was checking the kicks, throwing the good shots. And And for me, Glover is one of those guys where I'm thinking, when is it going to start to... When's he going to start going downhill? When's it... he's hit 40. When's it not going to be his time? I don't know, because I'm thinking he's getting close. He's got to be getting close. He got a decent win against Nikita Krylov, who is one of those guys. He's hit and miss. Kutilaba, standard, get him down, submit him. Karl Roberson, I think that's a solid win, but for me, Glover should be beating someone like that anyway. But when he fights the guys who are at the higher end, the higher echelon, like top 5 kind of guys, I think he starts to have a little bit of difficulty. And I think Anthony Smith here can use his range as a big benefactor in this fight. I think he can use front kicks, head kicks, 1-2s, and footwork. I think, and he's shown a good gas tank as well. Anthony Smith, what was it, the 4th round when he got with Gus, was it, or whatever it was? He was doing good, man. Like, he had good output, good movement still. I'm going to favour Anthony Smith in this one. I think he should be able to keep the distance. I think he can frustrate Glover. Glover, for him, the best spot to win is to get the fight to the ground. But man, there's got to be a tipping point for Glover. It's he's a few years back. It was when he was in at his peak, I think. But I'm going to go with Anthony Smith, man. I think Anthony Smith can stick around as light heavyweight division top 5 and still be a bit of a nuisance for folk.
It's a good fight. It's a nice, well-matched fight because, like I say, I've always been a fan of Glover. I just think he obviously had the troubles getting into UFC initially, and I think that if he was around a couple of years earlier, it wouldn't surprise me if he was maybe in the running for maybe having a title around his waist at one point. Everybody was calling for that anyway. They thought he was going to be winning that. But when I look at both fighters skill for skill, I really do favour Glover in a lot of spots. But what Smith is, he's a dogged competitor, and he's a dog. He does not give up. He will fight no matter if he's hurt. He will keep coming, and that's something that you cannot really kind of take away from a fighter like that, because he doesn't really shine out kind of skill for skill, but he's tough, and that's if you're tough, you're going to stick around the UFC, and he can. I'm not saying he's a bad fighter fundamentally. I just think that Glover is a more technical boxer. Obviously, he's got better. I think he's got better takedowns when he decides to use them. I think what I'm trying to say is he's better on the ground, but he's got. I think out of the two, he's probably got more chance of getting takedowns. And then when it's on the ground, I do think he's got a definitive advantage there. But in saying that, Glover has started to show that he's got tendencies where he can be controlled a little bit. Krylov, who's not known as like that, he had spots. He had Teixeira in some really bad spots. I believe he had the back. He had him stretched out. He had a couple of times when he got chokes on that looked kind of quite deep as well. So he has definitely fallen by the wayside a little bit. But I do think he's really he's a hard guy to get out of there as well, Glover Teixeira. You have to. I mean, Alexander Gustafsson had to really pep him up for 22 minutes before kind of knocking him out in that kind of video game combination that he caught him with in Sweden a couple of years ago. But both guys, same reach. But when you look at Smith, he definitely looks the kind of more longer fighter, and he's definitely got some power at the end of those punches. I think that just Glover can win this fight through getting it to the ground if he can and be in a superior position. I think he's got a really good chance of submitting someone like Anthony Smith, in my opinion. I was watching the Volkan Ozdemir fight, and Volkan in the second round moved on the ground to like positions that if Glover's in the same spot, I think that he could ultimately catch a submission, like I said, sorry. And then you've got this whole thing outside the cage with Anthony Smith and that home intruder, and where the guy's breaking into his house and he's grappling with a guy in his house. His kids won't even sleep in their own bedroom now. They're sleeping in the parents' bedroom. He's not been to his camp out in Colorado. So where you've got someone like Glover who's got his own gym. So all that kind of plays in for me a little bit. But like I said initially, skill for skill, I do kind of slightly favour Glover Teixeira in this spot. So I've got him here. I'm actually going to take him via submission in the mid kind of part of this fight. But if it goes late and he starts to slow a little bit, then maybe Anthony Smith can maybe turn it up a little bit and get Glover out of there. So I've got Glover, but I'm not writing off Anthony Smith because, like I said, he is a dog, and he doesn't stop coming at you. So Glover Teixeira is going to be my pick in the main event there. So that's our picks for the fight night card out in Jacksonville. Anthony Smith against Glover Teixeira. I'm going to go into the betting side of things a little bit here. I have 2 bets actually for this card already. Coming off a weekend where it wasn't really great for betting for me. I had a parlay of Tony Ferguson and Ngannou. Tony Ferguson got blew out of the water like we've seen. I had Greg Hardy via a decision, and I know John's not the biggest fan of Greg Hardy. I'm not really a big fan of Greg Hardy, but I was actually really impressed with Greg Hardy last week. Who else did I have? I think I had Tony Ferguson actually to win rounds 4, 5 and decisions. So, yeah, not good there. But the 2 bets I have so far are Philipe Lens via decision, plus 550. So got a little down on him. And then I've got an underdog play on Alexander Hernandez at plus 110, who's now plus 100. Probably looks like he might be the favourite by fight time. So, yeah, but to me, this card's a little bit tricky in spots.
Yeah, I think some of the fights are a bit too tight.
Yeah,
No, not every pick I've done, I'm not overly confident on them. We've obviously got to pick someone. Yeah, like what's the just out of curiosity? I don't know what's the Sherman odds. He's got to be quite a heavy favourite, I would have thought.
Yeah, he is minus 155, but interestingly
It's
enough,
not bad.
he opened up as quite a heavy, kind of slight, moderate underdog. So a lot of people really battered that line, and now he's been put into a favourite, which I believe he should be a favourite against Villanueva. But yeah, that spot there. I think, did you pick Ray Borg?
Yeah.
Well, he's an underdog. He's like plus 150, so that's not
good.
bad odds, and a guy that all the way that he can. Who else is there? Karl Roberson. I think we both went Vettori there, but Roberson's plus 150. I wish that line in Vettori would come down a little bit. If that comes down, that's a guy that I wouldn't mind betting in that spot there is Vettori. I keep looking, and this kind of reminds me of I know the fight didn't take place, but Uriah Hall Jacare fight from last week, where you're seeing minus 120 beside Jacare's name, and you're like, oh yeah, that looks decent. But then you've got to kind of sit back and evaluate what's happened and so on. But Michael Johnson and Moises is like minus 110 apiece, and I'm just kind of looking at Michael Johnson there and thinking, it's the value there, but it's hard to really trust that guy in that spot anymore. But if you're like some underdogs, just look at them here. Brian Kelleher plus 155, Gabriel Benitez, who I picked not super confidently, but he's minus 150, plus 155. Drew Dober, there's a chance he might go to being an underdog by fight time. That fight might end up picking, but you might get a slight dog leaning him by fight time. So who knows? I wouldn't mind Glover Teixeira's line going up. He's plus 155. There's a few in that number in this card. If it was to got past probably 175, that would probably pique my interest quite a bit. But it's got a little bit to get there, and I don't know whether it will get there personally.
Well, it's only a couple of days, isn't it? So. Yeah. It's hard, isn't it, to see that line jump? That's quite a big jump. Yeah,
this might be one of these cards that I actually maybe parlay one from this card and look at the Overeem card for the weekend and see if you can put something there, because I definitely think there's spots on that the card on Saturday that you could parlay a Wednesday and Saturday, and hopefully that can come through for you. So, yeah, but that's kind of where I'm going with that. There's not even parlays that I like for this card, so I'm probably going to be keeping it maybe 2 or 3 plays at minimum in this one.
Especially because you've got 2 cards, you can have a bit more freedom.
You can. Yeah, you absolutely can. Like I say, if you see spots that you like, you can jump in and put something from Saturday. So I quite like when cards are quite close together like this. But yeah, that's my little kind of look into the kind of betting side. I've got 2 plays, like I say, Lens by decision plus 550 and Alexander Hernandez plus 110. So yeah, that's us there. We're going to try and we probably are going to get another one out on Thursday night, because like I say, I'm off this week. We try to keep this a little bit shorter, because I don't want John spending all of his night editing this, so a little bit shorter than we're kind of used to. Probably Thursdays will be a little bit same as well. But yeah, we just wanted to get these out for you a couple of days beforehand. So until probably next week, later this week, sorry, we will catch up with you very, very soon. From myself and John, all the very, very, very best. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and support the channel. All the very best, and enjoy the fights when they come round Wednesday night.